You're not even going to believe that what we're talking about today is a real story. Welcome to the Weekend Spectator. My name is Grace Riley, and I'm here with the amazing Paul Kengor. Paul, it's great to be with you. You shared this story with me today to discuss, and I didn't even believe it when I started reading it. It was so absurd.
Great and gracious grace. I think that's one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. And in fact, the way that I found out about it, so my good friend Bill Donahue of the Catholic League, I'm on the board of advisors of the Catholic League, and he's amazing. I mean, he's been head of the Catholic League for a long time. Bold, fearless, brilliant. Yeah, such a good writer, an expert on the ACLU, which gets to this point. And he had put out one of his daily email alerts about a couple different stories involving the ACLU. And one of them I read, he said, this is crazy. This is really crazy. Could you write a piece on this for us at American Spectator? And he sent it to me and he titled it, Is the ACLU Crazy? And maybe, I don't know, maybe you could give the intro, take it from here, set it up, set the table and what he said, or I could.
Yeah,
But
sure.
people are going to find it hard to believe. I
Yeah,
could
so
do it
of
if
course,
you can't.
yes, of course, as you've heard so far, this is going to be about the ACLU, which of course there are always crazy stories related to them, but today's was particularly crazy. So apparently, the ACLU of Massachusetts is complaining that a proposed statue of Saint Michael the Archangel stepping on the neck of a demon, which is normal, obviously a normal figure is being considered because it quote unquote evokes the image of George Floyd being
Yeah.
stepped on in the neck by the police
Yes.
officer.
Yeah. So the town of, I think it's Quincy, Massachusetts, which is a very historic town, right?
And I'll say,
And
coming from the Northeast, I grew up in
yes.
Connecticut, obviously was near Massachusetts, all those states, like this is exactly the kind of insanity you would expect out of them. And this is exactly
Right.
why I moved to Florida.
Right, that's exactly right. I mean, it would be the ACLU, Massachusetts, probably the most liberal state in the entire country. But the Quincy, Massachusetts, they have this municipal building, and they're putting up different statues, and so they were putting up statues of the patron saints of firefighters and police officers. Now, for firefighters, this would be Saint Florian, which a lot of people don't know about. For police officers, it would be Saint Michael the Archangel. And as Bill Donahue points out, this is not an unusual thing to put up statues of religious figures. I mean, they're all over the U.S. Capitol. They're at the state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts Capitol. I mean, this has gone on for a long time, right? And Donahue says, now maybe they want to try to argue it's a government building, so they shouldn't put up statues. Even then, they would be out of bounds because, like I said, historically, this is done. But their objection, Grace, of all things, is that the statue of Michael the Archangel putting his foot, crushing a demon or devil figure, that this evokes the image of a police officer stepping on the neck of George Floyd. All
All
right.
right. So, and you know what? Honestly, before we even really get into it, I just want
Yeah.
to stop and go back to high school English class, right? We were taught that when you're going to take something and try to understand symbols or try to, do those mental gymnastics that are happening in this situation, normally, like if the left does exalt George Floyd as a hero, an angel, basically, obviously,
Yeah, right, true.
and of course,
St.
Derek
George.
Chauvin, which there's a lot of controversy about. People are saying Trump should pardon him, that he was wrongly convicted, all this stuff. But none of that to say, isn't it kind of missing the point? Like they're characterizing George Floyd as the devil figure in this.
Right.
And I'm just pointing that out because it just doesn't make sense and is illogical and is not even correctly following symbolism rules if they want to do that, which they
Yeah.
shouldn't because this is completely unrelated and absurd. But even if they were gonna try to make that jump, it's just the complete opposite. It's all messed up.
Yeah, yeah. What are they saying about George
Yeah.
Floyd in
What
that
is their
case, right?
point there?
Yeah, yeah. And let me say, this is why you need people. This is the problem, right? Liberals talk about DEI, all right? I have an idea. Why don't you use your DEI rules to put some people on the ACLU board and your staff who understand religion, all right?
Understand
So,
anything, really.
so
This is absurd.
some diversity and inclusion, because if you did that, okay, you would know that one, Michael the Archangel is one of the archangels in Scripture, okay? In fact, Michael the Archangel is a defender of Israel, of all things. And Michael the Archangel goes way back in Christian theology, Catholic theology. Now, to get even deeper into this, okay, there's a prayer to Michael the Archangel, and it comes from a vision that Pope Leo the 13th had. Leo the 13th was Pope from 1878 to 1903, one of the longest serving popes ever. And by the way, social justice, liberal, left-wing Catholics love Leo the 13th, all right? He's the Rerum Novarum Pope. He's like big social justice kind of stuff. So he composed this prayer. And here we go. All right, I'm a good Catholic boy, so I know this. I'll say it for historical and factual knowledge. All right, here's how it goes. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. Do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Now, Catholic parishes have been saying that at the end of Mass for over 100 years. A lot of them stopped after Vatican II, but a lot of them still do it. In fact, a lot of them in recent years started doing it again. My church and beloved disciple in Grove City, we say it at the end of Mass. So the historical depiction of Michael the Archangel, which you will see in statues of Michael the Archangel. In fact, you go into my parish and there's a statue of Michael the Archangel. His foot is on the neck of the devil or a demon. That's what he does. Okay.
That's
So
a
he's
good
the,
message.
it is, it's a good, so he's the patron saint of police officers. I've got a good friend who's a cop. He prays the Michael the Archangel prayer all the time. All right. So this is kind of standard basic stuff in Catholic teaching, in Catholic practice. The people at the ACLU in Massachusetts are so, I wouldn't even say hostile toward, they are that too, but they are so ignorant of religion. They know nothing about it at all, that they don't even know that that's what that is. By the way, I got news for you guys. They call Saint Joseph, right, terror of demons. The Saint Joseph being the foster father of Jesus. Oh, he must be a terrorist, right? I remember not that long ago when it was pointed out, well, this was about a year ago, Grace, and they were saying Catholics use rosary as a weapon against evil. Oh, they're weaponizing the rosary. What's this militaristic use of the Blessed Mother, right? No, they call it the church militant, right? So all this stuff has been around for hundreds of years. They don't know what it means. So they take it, they misinterpret it, and then they apply it instead to their kind of theology, which is police abuse, liberal religion and thinking and whatever, the whole George Floyd thing, and they twist it out of meaning, and they use that to try to banish this statue from this town in Quincy, Massachusetts. So it's the whole thing's really insane.
Well, and of course, the point of this too is, to these leftists at the ACLU and just leftists in 2025 generally, and in the 2020s generally, not everything is about you, and not
Yeah,
everything is like it's absurd to me that they would take an interpretation like this of something that's historical. It's not even, it's obviously religious, but it's just simple, know history, be able to critically think and analyze something. It's not that hard to do a Google search and understand the history of this.
right.
Uh,
In fact, if you
and
do
not every
Google
to make that
images,
about
yeah,
yes, and to can try to connect that to George Floyd, uh something that's hundreds of years old, I mean, it's absolutely absurd. It's not something that should be taken as in a present interpretation in that way. And it's crazy, but of course, the ACLU has been doing similar crazy things for their entire history, which you know a lot about.
yeah.
And
And
I want
by
to
the
get a
way,
bit into that.
before you get to that, right? It's only a matter of time, I imagine, before these ACLU officials in Massachusetts accuse the mayor of Quincy of being a racist, police officers of being a racist, Michael the Archangel of being a racist. Well, after all, it's like evoking the image of George Floyd, right? So again, just absolute towering complete ignorance. Let me add one more thing on the Michael the Archangel thing. I wrote a piece on this for Crisis Magazine a few months ago. You can put it up. Donald Trump, after he was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, talked about how he believed God saved his life. And if you remember, Grace, when he was in Milwaukee at the Republican convention, his son, I think it was Don, said, "Dad, there were angels that were watching over you, guardian angels that were watching over you." Well, on the feast day of Michael the Archangel, I know what that is. It's September 29th. I know that because my son John was born on the feast day of Michael the Archangel. Trump puts out on Truth Social, X, all of his social media things, the prayer of Michael the Archangel. It was fascinating to
Remember
see.
that.
Yeah. And in response, Robert Reich, one of these old Clinton administration liberals, said, "What kind of craziness is this? What kind of militancy is this? Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle," right? Well, once again, people on the left, you only read each other. You don't know
Completely
anything
missing the
about
point.
religion, and you embarrass yourselves. You really do. Open your mind.
Yeah, it completely misses the point. And you have to try pretty hard to be that ignorant, to miss the point that much and to understand like how much bigger the world, history, religion is. And not
The
everything's related to this stuff. And not
the
not everything should have a conclusion like that drawn from it.
The ignorance leads to stupidity, which then leads to hostility toward religion. And
Yeah.
then people say, well, it is the ACLU, right? And so to circle back to, I know where you were going with this, the ACLU has a history of this antagonism toward religion, right? I mean, we've heard all kinds of acronyms for it kind of reordered, right? Anti-Christian Liberties Union, right? Against Christian Liberties Union. And this goes back to its founding over 100 years ago by Roger Baldwin, 1920. Bill Donahue, who wrote this piece on this for us for American Spectator, he's written at least a couple books in the ACLU. I think he did his PhD, his dissertation on the ACLU. I did a book, of called Dupes. It came out in 2010. I've got a whole chapter on Roger Baldwin and the ACLU. Roger Baldwin, who was an atheist and at one point pro-communist. In fact, he actually wrote a book. I'm not making this up, folks. Okay, you could look it up. You could fact check me. Roger Baldwin wrote a 1929 book called Liberty Under the Soviets. Liberty under the Soviets. He was he never joined the Communist Party. And by the way, to his credit, and I go through this in Dupes, by the end of his time in the ACLU, he became convinced that the Soviet Union was evil, the communism was bad, and his board had been so infiltrated by pro-communists, maybe even some party members of the ACLU, that he started asking ACLU board members to take a loyalty oath to the U.S. Constitution to make sure that they weren't actually loyal to the Soviet Union. That's how bad it got at the ACLU. But other founders of the ACLU, Harry Ward, the Reverend Harry Ward, who is known as the Red Dean, right? The Red Dean of the Communist Party of seminaries. He founded the Methodist Federation for Social Action. Very pro-communist. Was he a party member? We never found out. If he wasn't a party member, it was only because he didn't want to be, so he could conceal that part of his communism. Corliss Lamont, Columbia University. Clarence Darrow of the Scopes trial, right? The monkey trial. He was one of the early founding board members of the ACLU. So they have been against religion from the very beginning.
Yeah, which of course makes this make a lot of sense, and it's just a crazy history to look through. And obviously, this is different, kind of, than the leftists trying to tear down statues across the country. But in a sense, it's the same thing where it's an effort to, do away with the old way of things,
Right.
and that's what it is. I mean, it's not only erasing religion, but it's erasing history. And it's trying to just create imagery of the new left, new Marxist utopia, I'll call it. But seriously, it's like
Yeah.
the new way of things, and everything else should be done away with. And that's whether it's something new being proposed to put up or just an older historical statue. We've just seen this time and time again, where of course leftists find one little thing to be nitpicky and be offended by, and then they order strongly that the entire statue be taken down in the name of racism or this or that. And of course, it's very evident from situations like this that, if anything, we should do more to brush up on our history, not erase it further.
Yeah, so to tear down a statue of an angel, right, a guardian angel, and the patron saint of police officers, you got to wonder, yeah, you're from New England, right? And you're from Connecticut and Massachusetts. I mean, all those, Irish Catholic cops in Boston and that whole area who said the Michael the Archangel prayer. And imagine those guys, they're going to be rolling over in their grave to imagine the ACLU of Massachusetts coming out today and wanting to banish that because they said it evokes imagery of George Floyd. But again, in the kind of narrow universe that they live in, right, where everything is about their radical left-wing politics, and they now have no knowledge of religion, basics of religion. You can see how they could easily look at something like that and not know anything about Leo the 13th and the prayer that he composed, but go straight to George Floyd. By the way, they'll probably, maybe they're using this as a way of, brandishing the race card to try to pressure the mayor of Quincy to put up a statue to George Floyd,
Mhm.
right? Who knows what the subterfuge is that's going on here.
Yeah, and it's just absurd and exactly what you said. Like it's just a very narrow way to look at things, and a way to look at history, and a way to just to think that everything that existed before you isn't even relevant enough to know about and understand. Which is the message that comes off from this, that you can just kind of fit the narratives into whatever benefits you and the political message that you're trying to get across. And of course, George Floyd has been idolized, and I'm sure that that's exactly what they'd like to do. They'd like to just do a switcheroo there and replace it.
Yeah, and I'll add here too that one of our most popular writers at American Spectator, Dan Flynn. So one of my favorite books by Dan is called Intellectual Morons. All right. And he begins his whole premise in that book is that ideology makes you stupid. And especially left-wing ideology, right? I mean, you've had my conservatism course. We've talked about this. Russell Kirk and others have said conservatism is really not an ideology; it's an attitude. It's a way of
A
looking at the
lifestyle.
world. Yeah, a lifestyle. And Kirk and others said ideology is for left-wing ideologues. And you can see here how left-wing ideologues, with their whole ideology right now, with CRT and all the race stuff that happened in the summer of 2020, the way they look at this has made them stupid. It's made them ignorant. It's made them ignorant of, again, basic theology, basic religious teachings. And in turn, it's made them further hostile to religion. So perfect example of intellectually moronic behavior here by the secular left, the ACLU of Massachusetts.
Yeah, always wrong, but never in doubt. And
Right,
never
right.
changing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We thank you for joining us this week for this absurd story that we are happy to have been able to talk about a bit. You've seen throughout this Bill Donahue's piece on the screen, so make sure that you check that out and look back at Paul Kengor's piece that he wrote a few months ago related to all of this. And there's always a lot of coverage, I feel like, of the ACLU at the American Spectator. Even back when I was interning, they would come up every now and again with crazy stuff like this. I remember reporting something on them. I don't even remember what, honestly.
Oh, they're great for article material, aren't they?
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
every
oh
day
yeah.
you could just follow the ACLU, read the New York Times, and you'd have 100 things to write about every day.
Exactly. Plenty of subject matter, but we encourage you to go to spectator.org and check all of those out. It's been great to have you with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Grazie, Grace. I will see you next week.